Where have all the metalheads gone?
We're right here, Granddad.
These are my favorite metal albums of 2025, starting with Revocation with New Gods, New Masters. Album 9 from this highly consistent fusion of thrash, death, and prog. They often teeter between which genre takes priority from album to album, but it was clear from the singles that they are more than happily leaning further into death metal for this one. Killer riffs and songwriting with a dark graveyard atmosphere, as well as guest spots from Travis Ryan of Cattle Decapitation and Job for Cowboys, Johnny Davey. As I said in the discography tier list, this may be my new favorite, and I think tops the previous album every day. Then we have Author and Punisher with Nocturnal Birding. The 8th album in this industrial machinist madman's now over 20-year career, and with production from Will Putney, guitar from Doug Sabolick, and guest performances from members of Fang, Couchslut, and Kuntari, this is one of his heaviest to date. Where the previous album Kruller had me admiring Tristan's more atmospheric Blade Runner side, this feels at times like his The Downward Spiral in a year where I stated that Nine Inch Nails was no longer capable of such unshackled fury. Then we have Cryptosis with Celestial Death. This Dutch band instantly became one of my new favorites with 2021's prog thrash banger Bionic Swarm, and they did not disappoint with this anticipated follow-up, and seemingly not content to be pigeonholed out of the gate, Celestial Death finds them very actively pushing their boundaries even further while still serving up the heaviness and speed that I'm looking for. Singles like Faceless Matter and Static Horizon made it clear from these spooky synths and emphasis on blackened atmosphere that this record would be a different beast entirely. I was a little worried at first that it might get lost up its own ass along the way, but no, this is another banger from a band that you need to add to your follow list. Next up is Pathogenic with Crowned in Corpses. This Massachusetts progressive death metal band returns after 6 years, proving once more why I'm a fan of quality over quantity. This is a delightful mix of tech death and genty grooves that I think should be pleasing to a pretty broad spectrum of the metal community. I could probably most closely compare this to something like Born of Osiris meets Job for a Cowboy, with roots much more firmly on the death metal side of the spectrum. Lots of impressive performances, good mix of ferocious singles with more expansive and progressive compositions. Then we have Deafheaven with Lonely People with Power. Now, I know that I may come off as a hater of this band sometimes, but I've enjoyed moments from them over the years, particularly New Bermuda, and I was more than happy to shout this one out as what I think may be their best album to date. This feels like a culmination of all the lessons learned over the past few records, with both the black metal elements sounding as sharp and icy as ever, as well as the shoegaze parts going toe-to-toe with the classics in the genre. Every song is damn near a 10 for me, no lulls, no filler, just a front-to-back epic of an album. Next up is Mugshot with All the Devils Are Near. This band exists at the perfect crossroads between deathcore and metallic hardcore. Out of San Jose, this is their second record, and with its uncompromising violence, it has quickly become one of my favorite core albums of the year. I got a bullet engraved with your name. Never miss a shot when I'm aiming blank. 26 straight minutes of complete disdain for all humankind, illustrated via unhinged dual vocal callouts and sickening grooves. If you dig Mouth Breather or Forever era Code Orange, this is pure headbang material in that same ballpark. Then there's Allegaeon with the Ossuary Lens. The 7th album from this Colorado technical and progressive death metal band, and the first in 10 years with returning original vocalist Ezra Haynes, and as much as I loved Damnum, I think that they've managed to top themselves again with this one. Far Far from the more Opeth-influenced sounds of Damnum, this is a full fury tech death marvel. There are still some moody clean moments as with single Driftwood, but it's largely full-on ragers like the Swarm, Imperial, and Dark Matter dynamics that I'm after. Then we have Epica with Aspiral. This band pretty much single-handedly finally got me into symphonic metal with the epic Omega, and now 4 years later they've managed to match that same level of quality with this 9th outing. I know that the longtime fans seem to rank this one lower, but going through the discography in order for the tier list, I genuinely think that these are some of their most impressive arrangements to date. Seriously dynamic songwriting that is both complex and incredibly catchy, and with stunning performances across the board, from Simone's always incredible singing to the symphonic additions to maybe some of their most fun and memorable guitar work as well. Next up is Cryptopsy with an insatiable violence. The 9th album from this long-time running and highly influential Canadian technical death metal band, following up the fantastic As Gamora Burns in 2023, and while that is a tough act to follow, I think that this album mostly delivers on the same promise of high-octane, brutal madness. Some serious riffs and drumming all over this record with very little downtime in its more than tight 34-minute package, and then some great notes of dark atmosphere that stuck with me as well on the likes of Our Great Deception, Embrace the Nihility, and closer Malicious Needs. Then there's Vildhjarta with Where the Forest Sings Under the Eternal Spruce Trees. The third thunderous threnody of Thal from this Swedish band, a description I was so proud of I needed to use it again here. And where past releases have found me frankly kind of bored and waiting for it to be over with, this one feels like it has more layers to peel back and standout moments like those venomously enunciated snarls and rolled R's that show up a little over the third of the way through Sargasso. And also on that note, I am loving the sparing use of clean vocals, seemingly more dynamic songwriting, and increased focus of the less than hour runtime after the seemingly endless 80 minutes of the last record. In addition to Sargasso, I'm also partial to Ylva, Der Mosen Mutter Havet, and Regnet Thee. Then there's Depravity with Bestial Possession. I've enjoyed every album from this Australian death metal band, but I think this third one really takes the cake. They've made use of the 5 years since the last record with some of their most monstrous riffage yet. And with the high-octane infusions of thrash into the guitars alongside the more dark and brutal atmosphere, it makes a nice companion piece with that latest album from Revocation. Leave it to Transcending Obscurity to serve up heaters all the way to the end of the year. We still have plenty more albums to go, but just a reminder here that you should hit the like button and also comment your favorite albums of the year to help out the video in the algorithm and also just get a conversation going. Do it or Hunter will be very sad. Do it! Alright, but next up we have The Halo Effect with March of the Unheard. I've been a little lukewarm on the last two Dark Tranquillity records, but where those have just been solid, the union of members of both that and In Flames has so far yet to let me down. You really do get the best of both worlds on this sophomore effort, those unmistakable classics in Flames riffs, the lush atmosphere of Dark Tranquillity synths, and of course, Michael's always powerful vocals. The opposites everywhere. Lots of great tracks to get their hooks in you here, my personal favorites being Detonate, Our Channel to the Darkness, What You Become, and March of the Unheard. If I'm being honest, I prefer the debut overall, but there's really not a moment of this follow-up that I feel compelled to skip, so consider this an A tier to that one's S. Then we have Sigh, I Saw the World's End, Hangman's Hymn re-recording. Another case where making a re-recording is a tall order, as this was already one of my favorite albums from one of my favorite underground bands, but leave it to this Japanese avant-garde crew to somehow nail every aspect of the performance perfectly almost 20 years later. Seriously, had I not known, I would have just assumed that this was a remaster, because the only difference is really the vastly improved production. Every note, every scream, and all the little quirks that made it great to begin with are still there, and the emphasis on the brass instruments comes through stronger than ever. Then there's Fleshbore with Painted Paradise. The first album to really blow me away this year, back in January, and a big step up from the last one. Ember's Gathering was good, but this follow-up blows that out of the water in every possible way for fans of Archspire, Exocrine, and Surreption in particular. The guitars are just so much fun in their chaos, and the rapid-fire vocals never fail to put a smile on my face. This set the tone for another crazy year in death metal right from the start, and it continues to hold its own months later. We also have Pupil Slicer with Fleshwork. The third album from this UK metalcore mathcore crew that has become one of my favorites over the last few years, and where Blossom continued to build on some of the more melodic directions amidst the heavier ones. This one just feels purely pissed off, aside from the very post-hardcore tinged single Nomad. Besides this, a whole lot of screaming and meaty, punchy riffs are the name of the game, and that's the side of the band that I tend to love the most anyways, and oftentimes the bass steals the show here on tracks like Innocence, Black Scroll, and the hypnotic Fleshwork. Then there's the Acacia Strain with You Are Safe from God here. The 13th album from this nearly 25-year running multi-genre band is another absolute monster in an already impressive discography. This one picks up with many of the same metallic hardcore, grindcore, and beatdown elements of Step Into the Light, with shorter track lengths while extending the runtime. And for those of you who also enjoyed the sludgier, doomier turn of Failure Will Follow, there's also a treat for you at the end with the sprawling, nearly 14-minute closer Blood Loss. These guys continue to show mastery over every style that they put their minds to, and I'd go so far as to call this one of the best metallic hardcore releases of the decade so far, alongside other big names like Harm's Way, Knocked Loose, and End. Then there's Eluvedi with Anu. The Swiss folk metalers have returned with their 9th album, and while I've been less of a fan of their material since Anna Murphy's exit, this feels like a real return to form. Songs like Premonition, The Prodigal Ones, and Awin definitely caught my attention, bringing back my favorite side of the band in the infectious folk instrumentation, heavier elements, and clean vocals, all seemingly in perfect harmony. Meanwhile, the softer moments are also much stronger here, foregoing the more pop sensibilities of the previous album in exchange for something much more breathtaking, namely perhaps Fabienne's strongest vocal performance yet on Anu. This album very much impressed and even surprised me in just how consistent and dynamically flowing it is front to back. Then there's Tala with Primeval, Obsession, Detachment.
Listen before you speak, we're in another thing, please, and much more. Set up a test of your body, it doesn't matter how you feel.
Another killer album from, in my mind, the only truly great nu metal act of the new school. This third record continues to show the band grow and improve, and the genuineness shines through, especially in the live single-take vocal performances of Justin Bonnets, who was ill and recovering from pneumonia, but still managed to kill it.
So tell me, what were you playing? Did you find out the worth of yourself? Step away from the crampage. Yes.
Also very impressed with Max Portnoy's performance on this album, moving now from drums to bass, all around super heavy stuff that I hope will carry the new generation of Jenko jeans, Korn t-shirt wearing kids into another great era of angsty music. There's also Black Magnet with Mega Mantra. I was already very much down with this Midwestern band's pummeling fusion of industrial metal with hardcore energy after hearing Body Prophecy in 2022, but I think this new one blows that out of the water. Take the infectious synth lines of Nine Inch Nails and Skinny Puppy, but ramp up the aggression, perhaps even beyond what I expect from like Godflesh and Candy. Another case of an album where every track is single-worthy, from the cinder block to the face endless to the groovy hip-hop infused Better Than Love. It's no wonder that they've been booking shows not only with other great modern industrial metal bands like Author and Punisher and Three Teeth, but also groups like Code Orange. Then there's Deftones with Private Music. Look, I love these guys. They are one of my favorite bands since White Pony, but it's been quite a while since I felt one was worthy of a spot on the end of year list. But man, they really pulled out all the stops for this one, and everyone is bringing their A game here, from the riffs and atmospheric additions to what may very well be the best front-to-back performances of Chino's career. And much like with White Pony, even though it's a very different album, there is a lot of diversity on display while still feeling like a very cohesive whole. Every song has something special to offer, and there genuinely were times that I departed my body. Then there's Igor with Amen. Always a good month when one of the most unique and innovative projects around releases a new album, and on this 5th record, Gautier and company only continue to put a smile on my face with his increasingly unpredictable twists and turns, very much inspired by the works of Mr. Bungle. From Baroque to Breakcore, this Frenchman really twists my brain into knots with tracks like Blast Beat Falafel featuring Trey Spruance of Mr. Bungle, and Headbutt, which crescendos with a mic'd up piano being crushed by an excavator. Nothing is sonically off limits to Igor, and it is that boundless creativity that continues to make each album his best yet. There's also Signs of the Swarm with To Rid Myself of Truth. This album goes so hard. Like, I already loved Amongst the Low and Empty in 2023, but this 6th album from the Pittsburgh deathcore band easily tops that one. This thing is packed with back-to-back ragers with killer vocals, wildly infectious riffs, and some killer guest spots from Will Ramos, Phil Bozeman, Johnny Crowder of Prison, and Jack Murphy of 156 Silence. Phil and Jack were my favorites on that front, with Iron Sacrament and Fear and Judgment respectively, but again, there's not really a track here that I didn't favorite, and as punishing as the pure heavy sections are, they also demonstrate some incredible work with atmosphere on Forcing to Forget and Sarkitsai. Then there's Veilburner with Longing for Triumph, Reeking of Tragedy. This seemingly unstoppable force of black and death metal is back again with their 8th album, and just a year after the last one. More warbly, otherworldly, psychedelic guitars and truly demented vocals to infect your brain with insanity, and I appreciate that they continue to be one of the riffier bands in the genre. Ouroboreal Whirl also gave me some 90s Rotting Christ and Moonspell vibes with its gothic melodies and dramatic flair, and Matter of the Most Awful of Martyrs is one of their most dynamic tracks to date, seeming to be a straight ripper before taking a surprisingly uplifting turn at the end. Hunter likes it so much he's squeaking his toy with delight. Of course, there's also the Callous Dowboys with I Don't Want to See You in Heaven. No surprise that this ended up here, as this is one of my favorite modern day bands, and they have yet to put something out that I didn't consider to be at least close to a 10 out of 10. And once more, their eclectic mix of influences from the Dillinger Escape Plan to Deftones and 2000s emo makes for an absolutely thrilling listen. Insane mathcore breakdowns give way to smooth jazz with saxophone, and joking at the beginning of the music video about the lack of heavy parts on Lemon Aside, I love that song and can't stop dancing to the very Enrique Iglesias-coded acoustic guitar. I have been recommending this band to basically everyone I come into contact with, and have been pleased to see that almost across the board people end up loving it. Before I get to my favorite pick of the entire year, just a thank you to the audience, both to just viewers who continue to engage with the content. That really helps me out and helps the channel grow. We hit 50,000 this year. That's crazy. And then also a special thanks to all the patrons and channel members. Like, your support really makes it easier for me to diversify what I'm doing and not worry as much about the views. But my favorite metal album of 2025 goes to Imperial Triumphant with Gold Star. One of my most anticipated releases of the year by far from this jazz-infused technical black metal trio, now going for round 6, and fortunately it is once more among their best with this surprisingly concise 38-minute runtime, challenging them to offer something a bit more accessible while still being as experimental as ever, delving into everything from Brazilian maracatu to African gnawa music. And then Thomas Hake of Meshuggah returns to guest, as does new collaborator Dave Lombardo. Another utter masterpiece from one of my favorite bands putting out music today. I said when this came out that I'd be very surprised if anything else was able to steal the crown from this one over the following 6 months, and nothing did. Not even close.
You lose! Good day, sir!
Alright, y'all, you can check out this playlist for all of my favorite metal albums of the entire year by month. I will also very soon be putting out a compilation of that video if you just want to wait for the big extended edition of it. Also, check out this video for your personal YouTube recommendation, but that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. Thanks for another great year, and I will see you in 2026.